2.5 years ago, the sound of a power drill echoed through the half-finished bar. Finn crouched near the back wall, lining up the last of the wooden shelves beneath the mounted shadow boxes. Inside them sat fragments of their past lives. A scorched medal, a bullet casing from Kandahar, a rusted coin from some nameless Eastern European dive. Each piece had its own ghost, its own story. "Hey, don't you dare hang it crooked," Puck called from behind the bar, where he and Sam were taking inventory of the bottles. "The last thing this place needs is a shelf that looks like you eyeballed it." Finn grunted, then stood up and walked to the corner of the room. He picked up a laser scope mounted on a level and flipped it on. A green beam of light drew a perfectly straight line just under the shelves. "See? It's straight. You think I disrespect a wall I'm gonna be staring at all the damn time?" Sam laughed, limping a little as he shuffled around behind the bar loading glasses into the overhead rack. "I've seen you eyeball a lot worse things, Hudson." "Yeah, like your haircut," Finn shot back. Mike's voice cut through from across the room. "Focus, children. These barrel tables aren't gonna arrange themselves." He wiped a streak of dust off his cheek, stepping back to eye the layout. "We're 2 kegs short, but otherwise, it's starting to look like a real place." The air smelled of sawdust and lemon oil, and the floors were still sticky from where Puck had insisted on seasoning the wood with his latest batch of homebrew. The Raven's Nest wasn't just a bar, it was therapy with liquor shelves. Then the front door creaked open. "Boys," came Sue Sylvester's voice, sharp, amused as she slinked through the door almost undetected. The 4 jumped at the sound. "Christ, I'm gonna have an actual heart attack thanks to her one day," Mike muttered. "How the hell does she keep doing that?" "No way does she have a key for here," Sam said to Finn and Puck, both who just shrugged. "You should know by now, Skidmark. I'm always here even when I'm not. Locks or no locks." She almost grinned and appraised the room with scrutiny, pausing to admire the Poe mural on the far wall. "I've seen war zones with better feng shui, but I'll give you this much, it has a certain charm. I guess Walt Disney already had the name Haunted Mansion on lockdown, so the Raven's Nest is apropos," she said, then waited expectantly for the pun to land. When they didn't react, she waved a hand in irritation at them. Puck glanced up, wiping his hands on a rag. "Well, look who decided to grace us with her terrifying presence. And thanks for the jump scare, by the way. Sammy here was worried he wasn't getting enough cardio in now that he has to do the treadmill like a one-legged hamster." "Hey, I told you, balance is my new superpower." "Stuff it, douche," Sam said, throwing a wadded bar towel at Puck's head. Yeah, you teeter-totter around like a fucking ballerina, Peggy." Turning back to Sue, Puck asked, "So, to what do we owe the pleasure, General So?" Sue continued her slow cat-like pacing around the bar, eyes scanning the room, taking in every corner with a critic's precision. "The pleasure is all mine. I have to hand it to you boys. This place looks fantastic. If I squint." She stepped closer to the bar, tapping one of the bottles with a manicured nail. "Do you actually intend to open this place to the public or just to each other and your collective PTSD?" "Little bit of both," Finn said as he stood to his full height and dusted off his hands on his pant legs. "What can we do for you, Sue?" "Not much. I was just in the neighborhood, thought I'd stop in, see if you boys were on the verge of blowing up the block yet with Puckerman's homebrew contraption. Kickstand over there tells me he's put a whole new contraption set up in the basement of this joint. I just hope it's far enough away from that cold storage room in case of the inevitable explosion." Sam rolled his eyes and muttered, "I think I like Peggy better." "Hey, it ain't gonna explode. So little confidence." "I know what I'm doing," Puck defended. "Yeah, maybe now," Finn added. Before Puck could argue, he threw in, "All I'm gonna say is we all owe Mike Chong a huge thanks for his due diligence on the extra fire extinguishers at home. It was one time, Vanessa. God, one little fire and you guys act like I'm the Homer Simpson of homebrewing." "Well, if the blown propane line fits." Mike smirked. "Right." Sue tilted her head. "Much as I'd love to continue watching this little matinee, I, unlike you 2.5 men and Puckerman, have a life and places to be. I also need the shopping list for our new communications hub downstairs. So, Michigan J. Chong, if you wouldn't mind putting down your cane and top hat and shuffling off to Buffalo down to the basement, take a tape measure with you and fetch me your wish list of what we'll need to get that room operational." Mike looked at the others, then at her. "So we're really doing that?" She gave a faint smile, the kind that never reached her eyes. "Indeed. You were the one who said redundant servers were the smart move." "Right, I was." Mike sighed, grabbing a pencil and his notepad. "On it." As he disappeared down the basement stairs, the remaining 3 exchanged glances. Finn went back to adjusting a frame, but the easy energy in the room had shifted. They'd all felt it, the subtle tension that always followed Sue's entrance. She never came by without a greater purpose. As soon as Mike was out of earshot downstairs, she cleared her throat and pulled a thick binder from her messenger bag. "Attention men. We have another assignment." Puck rolled his eyes. "Sue, what the hell? Can't you see we're kinda in the middle of stuff? We're busy as ass and just about to open the bar in another 2 weeks. I don't think now is. It's Barry Wilson." She could have told them what was in the file. How his parole time has just ended, and he was technically a 100% free man now, even though he's already been out of jail living free for more than a decade. But now he has exactly 0 prying eyes to report back to periodically. She could have told them how his time out of jail hadn't entirely been squeaky clean, that he was still a drug addict who finds ways to cheat the mandatory drug tests he was required to give his parole officer. She could have mentioned how he'd had 2 different live-in girlfriends in the last 5 years, both whom he'd beaten to a near bloody pulp and threatened the lives of if they reported him to the cops or his PO. She could have even given the boys a great speech and pep talk about how being a junkie and an abusive womanizer made him as volatile and dangerous as ever, therefore it was a matter of time until history repeated itself. But she didn't need to. Because he's also still the guy who murdered Mike's parents, and that's all that mattered. The guys were in without her needing to ask or explain a thing. All she had to say was his name. The only word spoken by anyone came from Finn. "Where?" "It's in the file. Bon appetit, gentlemen." 15 minutes after Sue had already departed the bar, Mike returned with one pencil tucked behind his ear and another still scribbling on a legal pad, babbling as he re-entered the main space. "Yeah, I think a couple secure Apaches and at least 1 Unix will work. I can set up everything on 1 rack, although 2 would be more ideal. The only tricky part will be routing the power and cooling systems into the space through those limestone block walls, but between the 4 of us I think we got it aired." His techno-honeydew list skittered to a halt when he finally looked up at the faces of his brothers, sans Sue. What did I miss? Someone die? Not yet, man. But he's gonna, Puck said in a reverent voice. He walked over and gripped both of Mike's shoulders, shaking him a bit as he said, and you, my man, you get to do the honors. Or, choose who you want as your Kenneki. What? She got him, Finn said, holding up the file his nose had still been buried in. Got who? Mike asked slowly. Sam limped over, having an achy stump day. He dropped a hand on Mike's shoulder as Puck remained clamped to the other. BMW, Sam said in a near whisper and Mike froze. After a long silence filled the room, Mike finally looked at Finn. Barry motherfucking Wilson is in that file? Yep, Finn practically smiled. Not because any of them relished taking a life. Not because they took pleasure in the task they knew was upon them, but because they were finally fulfilling one of their biggest bucket list items going all the way back to being 16-year-olds at the chocolate factory. They were avenging one of their own. When, was all Mike asked. Soon as you say go, man, Puck assured. A week later, on a Thursday night at 2 a.m., the four brothers sat at the bar still dressed in their black camos, sipping the first successful batch of Puckerman's infamous secret sauce. The official label on the bottles included a matte black silhouette of a raven perched on a tree limb against a dark purple foil background. What it didn't include was the word infamous. That was an add-on by the brothers, so they could use the acronym to describe the flavor of Puck's first several failed batches. Here's to a prophecy fulfilled, Sam toasted. To justice served, Puck added. To brothers for life, Finn said as they all clinked bottles and drank. After draining almost half his bottle, he eyed Mike, who'd remained quiet since they got back from carrying out Operation Decommission BMW. You good, Mikey? Mike grabbed the patron and poured out 4 shots. Never better. To Mike Sr. and Julia, he said raising his shot glass. The guys all threw back their shots and Puck slapped Sam on the back. One day it'll be your firebug, Peggy. Sam nodded as his eyes flicked to Finn and your Russians. Yeah, one day, Finn agreed. They continued drinking in silence for another hour before deciding to head home. Well, all except Finn, who lingered to lock up. As they all left, he smiled watching Mike walking lighter than he had in years. He'd stayed behind, leaning against the bar, eyes on the black and purple bottles lined up like trophies. As always after a mission, even in Afghanistan, Finn needed that quiet time to decompress, to process. Tonight went smoothly. Maybe too smoothly. The kind of unproblematic success that made him wonder why it was this easy to snuff out a life. Justice served. Prophecy fulfilled, well, one of 3, at least. Those were great justifications, but did it help him sleep better at night? He knew Mike would, and that was enough for him. The purple neon raven light over the bar hummed, and Finn closed his eyes, lost in its white noise. Somehow, everything in his life before this had felt like preparation. Tonight, for the first time, his calling felt like it had real meaning. He rubbed at a faint scar under his chin, courtesy of some ricochet shrapnel in Kandahar, deciding that was a concern for another night. He blew out a slow breath, killed the lights, and left the bar to its ghost.
I saved you the extra juicy ones.
Thanks for dinner. I brought dessert. Grasshopper pie, my bubby's recipe.
Peace, love, and glee, dude. Peace, love, and glee, dude. Peace, love, and glee, dude.